All right, glad everybody can make it to today's class. Today's class is, I think you're really going to like it in the sense that we are looking at the reflections of our accomplishments of our past, of this past year. So just to sort of reiterate, today's color method or theme is white. Whenever I get a message that the theme is white, there's so many subtleties in that. First of all, the clarity of messages. When I get a white, it's almost like a high priestess type of readings, and I feel that the readings are coming from like another higher place, for lack of a better word. The path is clear, and this is a time to really start applying light and applying a lighter aspect to our daily lives. So there's many meanings to having it in white. Let's talk about, this is the last Friday of this year. The Spirit wanted to really look at what it means to us as humans, as to what this really means. If you look over the accomplishments that you have done for 2022, this last year. Now, those that are listening to this a year from now, it'll be whatever your current year is. So whatever your current year is, you look back in the year and you look at all the accomplishments that you did. Are you happy with it? Now, I don't need an answer, but you can ask yourself, am I pretty happy with all the things I had to go through, all the things I had to achieve and attain to get to this point right now? Some people had several goals that they wanted to do. They may or may not have all been accomplished. And it isn't about an action plan. The Spirit doesn't want to give you sort of the idea that all the goals that you put down, it's all action plan. Because it's like, oh, I got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. That's a checklist for like a laundry list of things you got to shop when you go to the store. Those are the things that you need. It's an action thing. Goals are a little different from an energetic standpoint. Many of them will come to you anyway, believe it or not. You just had to vocalize it to say, this is what I want this year, and it's now out in the open. You would have accomplished it anyway, but still, it needed to be addressed. It needed to be out in the open. So when we start reflecting about our year, all the things that you planned you were going to do, how many people had extra things that was totally unforeseen that came onto their plate that you also had to accomplish this year that came out of the blue? And that could have been maybe a family member was sick, or you had to fly to someplace. Maybe there was a passing in your family, maybe, but something always shifted, and everybody has a story about that. And we just want you to understand that with all the goals and all the accomplishments that you're going to do and did last year, more came on your plate, and you still managed to get all of it done. In other words, whether it was a goal or not, you are here today and showing that no matter what comes into your path, you're still going to end the year and you're still going to be moving forward as best you can. Now, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about some of the things that have happened this year? Now, we know one thing, which is quite obvious. History, we cannot change. But ask yourself, was there something that I feel a little uncomfortable about? Maybe it was an ending of a relationship. Maybe it was an ending of part of your business. Maybe you started a business, part of it, and halfway through you're saying, oh, this is not really what I wanted. And then you chose another more fruitful avenue and started taking it to make it go, right? So sometimes it is a changing of directions, or it is a closing off of something. And all of it has to do with you being right there to make that decision. When we first start off in any journey, we never know where it's going to go. We have to make the attempt to make that first step. And all of you did. The Spirit wants to also you to understand that in reflecting In other words, you are here right now in this time and space. When you go back to January, just 12 months ago approximately, and then in February, though, those are all points of time and space. So that means there's 2 points. There's you where you are right now, and you have a point that you are reflecting on. And what is reflecting back? Is it something you like? Is it something you're okay with? Is it something that, could have done better? Or perhaps it was a waste of time doing something. But whatever came back, it is history. You can't change it. However, it is what is labeled as that in time and space you can change. Now, let me give you an example. If you look into a mirror, okay, just to give you this 2-point concept. If you look into a mirror, you are where you are. And as your image through your eyes goes through a glass with the silver and the treatment on the back of the glass, it totally reflects everything that comes to you and reflects it back. So there is 2 points. There is you, the reflection, and when it comes back, do you like what you see? In other words, do you like what you see in the mirror? Some people can answer this very quickly. Had a couple of clients recently where they did not like what was reflecting back. She says, well, Tony, I'm getting older and I'm just not seeing the same person that's reflecting in the mirror for me. And what Spirit's suggestion is to get another mirror for the front hallway. And that was one of the recommendations, is that there's no mirrors in her house anymore. She's living alone and she prefers not to see herself in any opportunity. She'll have one, of course, in the bathroom, which is what it is. She has the one in the bedroom that she has attached to the dresser covered. And that's it. There's no other mirror. And so one of the suggestions is get yourself a damn I'm hot mirror. Go into a store. It has to be a full-length mirror. And it doesn't matter what it's framed in, as long as it's not black. So it could be wood or white or any color. Okay, just not black framed. And what do you see? And when you look at that, it is your damn I'm hot mirror. So when you look at it, what comes back? Just with that thought that this is my good looking mirror. And most times our perspectives change a little bit just because we've labeled something of what it is. Rather, oh, that's the mirror that I look so old. That's the mirror that I look so like I'm so heavy. That's the mirror that I cried when the relationship ended. And our minds do that, where they associate a emotional situation or an emotional time and they tie it to something. I mean, do you remember where you were when you heard, those of you that are old enough, of course, Elvis Presley passed away? Not sure if you remember that. I know what I was doing. But do you remember what you were doing in 2000, those of you? That the totally changed new century. Where were you? Were you at a party? Were you at home? And it was a big milestone. And your mind ties that milestone into whatever it is. But it also ties it into smells. Aftershave lotion, the different types of creams and lotions that have a very distinctive smell ties into that memory as well, and it has that 2-point system. So you could go back 30 years or 20 years or whatever the case may be just by smelling something. Oh my God, that's grandma's perfume. Okay? So that's what the mind does. It ties those things together, and from an emotional standpoint, there's 2 points. And how do you feel about that time? So let's say we look back at a time where, let's say you lost a job. We're just going to use a very general example. Most of us has either lost a job or we got laid off or we did something different. So this might be applicable to many people. So you've lost a job. And then in looking back and reflecting, it says, yeah, that wasn't a good time, losing that job, because I really needed that job. I wasn't appreciated there anyway. wasn't making very much money. And I always wanted to advance or do something more, but they never let me. But the thing is, it was still a job. And after I lost my job, I wasn't getting anything. So when I look back and reflect on that, it is not a good time for me. And so if we look at that particular example, we could say true. If we look at from a very narrow lens as to what happened in that, but if we widen that a little bit, we could say, well, I've been trying to get another job for quite some time, and I was sort of being pushed, or there was an urge for me to try and find and get another job, but I always decided not to, because I'd have to go through interviews and you always came up with some excuse. No matter what the excuse was, in the end, you didn't do it. You just kept progging along and settling for the job that you don't want to stay in. In time, Spirit just says, okay, this is enough. We're going to lay you off. And when you look at what happened after you got laid off, in that particular moment, there might not be that elation or anything, but soon after, you got hired by another company. Maybe you got more money. Maybe you were appreciated more. Maybe there was, in other words, when you widen the lens, does the situation change? And 9 times out of 10, it does, because our lenses are very narrow when we look at something sort of bad, what we call bad. But Spirit had to do that, because otherwise you'd still be in that job and you'd be miserable 10 years later or 5 years later. And you're not a person that should be settling in anything in life. You should always want the best. If you get inklings to move on, what is holding you back? Most times it's just us. We're in our own way. We're coming up with, I need help with this job. And we have this idea that I need to get a promotion in this job. I need to get advanced in this job, more money in this. So it's very linear. Our thoughts are very linear at that point. Spirit has, or your energies have a solution, but it may not be with that particular company. So what ends up happening is they just do a universal correction, and for whatever reason, there's going to be a scale down of people, and you're going to be one of them. And even though you're there longer, they might say, well, we're going to give you a small package, or we'll just lay you off, and then you'll come back whenever. And as soon as you're free, you're open to that new idea, you start applying, and then right away you get this other job. And so Spirit wants you to realize that when we look back and we redefine or relabel, I guess would be a better word, that point of time, it will no longer feel that it was something bad. It will feel that it needed to happen. And all you need to do is, when you relabel it, is what does it mean in the end after I lost this job? When I look back at that job, it gives me strength, because knowing that I was able to go to another job and have no problem finding work in another company. So that gave me strength. So what used to make you feel down, like I lost a job and so on, it's now uplifting. Another example, had a case some time ago about a relationship. This particular woman was looking back at this one relationship. They were going out for about 18 months. Then finally, they figured they'd get married. And on wedding day, she's waiting, and would make a long story short, the groom never showed up, left her at the altar. He just figured, I just don't want to do this. I can't do this. For what it was, very few words she said he had, but he was gone. And she was left with all the expenses, of course, everything that goes with, as you can understand, you're in your white gown and you're at the altar. You're on your own. So huge embarrassment. So when this person looked back at that time, she said she felt embarrassed, and of course gave me a whole list of things that made her feel bad. I says, okay, this is a perfect example of how we can go back in reflection and see what can bounce back if we can just relabel it, make the image different. So she was only seeing it from the point that she's at the altar and the person didn't show. So let's open up the lens a little bit. What happened after? Well, after we was all done, I met this other guy at a party, and we hit it off, and he was just amazing. He asked me to marry him within 2 months, and we're still together. So, okay. So let me ask you this. Would it be safe to say that if the other person would have showed up and married against his will or grudgingly, then you would never have met this other man? She said, absolutely not, because then I'm not looking, I'm married. So what's the gift in the fact that he left? The gift is, I gave my love to somebody who saw my value and didn't look at just what's going on with them. That's right. What else? And gave me 2 other examples. For her was massive. So when we ask the question, what is the gift in this massive emotional soup, whatever it is, you'll get a completely different answer than why did he leave? Why did I get fired? Why did I get laid off? Not many answers to that. All that you're going to get is a circle of no answers, a circle of just thoughts and concepts that are just going to make you feel weaker, right? So the end result is, what will make you feel stronger? What will make you feel more loving? What will make you feel that that part was pinnacle? He had to not show up for you to find this amazing man. It took him 18 months worth of hemming and hawing and still didn't go through with it. And so I said, so let me see if I understand this. In those 18 months, what did he do to contribute to the relationship? She says, what do you mean? Well, because Spirit is saying you did all the work. You made sure that his lunch is packed. You made sure that he got home. And even though you worked the extra hours, you still made extra, like you made it, everything happen. He didn't have to do anything. And when you sat down, there was more things expected from you. Is that what you want over a 20, 30, 40-year period? Oh, no, I guess not. But I really wanted the relationship to work. Yeah, but you were the only one. In this relationship, he just thought that it wasn't going to work for him. But you were almost at a precipice of settling for something you didn't want for the rest of your life. And be very careful, because when you make life decisions, it's very, very difficult sometimes to go back, to rework it and be in that same place again. It's like being on the freeway and your lawn chair flies off the car. Well, you can't go back, and you know what's on the side of the road, so you got to go 10 kilometers or 10 miles, make a U-ey on the freeway, come back, make another U-ey to get to the same spot and park. Like, you could be gone for an hour. In life, sometimes there is no off-ramp. You make a decision that you need 10 seconds to decide. And part of the question you're going to ask yourself is, how do I want to be loved? How do I want to be treated? Is this what I want to do for the next 20, 30, 40 years? And if it's yes, okay, you got a winner. But if you're hesitating, you don't even have to say no. If you're hesitating, it is already a no, because you shouldn't have to settle for anything. When you start reflecting back at the things that didn't happen that great for you, and that reflection comes back and it gives you a hit, the masses' frustration is that, well, I can't change history. Absolutely correct. But you can't change the labeling of what that meant. Because had this guy showed up, I wouldn't have met this other amazing, and they're still together. They're constantly, he's constantly doing stuff for her. No, while we were in a session, he's saying, oh, honey, you want a soup? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see your coffee, He's always looking after her. He says, what did you have to do to get him? He says, I didn't have to do a thing. I did nothing to get this guy. And this other guy, I had to work like a slave and I still didn't. I says, okay, that's how easy it is. So you were almost made a life, because there's no way that's going to last. And if it does last for 20, 30 years, you're going to be a different person. So that's something that you'll have to reassess. Another one is if you're had this other case about a relationship where a person comes home and the house is empty. This is after about a 12-year marriage, and the person just had enough, fed up. He comes home and everything's empty. And so she just said, I can't do this anymore. Do what? I thought we were doing great. Totally got blindsided, didn't have any clue that something was wrong, but the person had whatever feeling and couldn't vocalize that she was not happy. Now, that wasn't his fault. It's not her fault. It's just that their communication ability needed some work. But in doing that, what happens after? So whenever you look at your past and you look at it from a very small lens that isn't very uplifting, try, after you hear this, widening the lens. What happened before? What happened after? What was the result of losing your job? What was the result of not getting married? Or if you got dumped, and what was the result of going to another school or another country? What is the gift? In other words, those are the questions we need to start asking ourselves. So, because we can't change history, but we can change what that history means to us, and simply widening the lens probably takes care of about 95% of the solution that is in there. Because there's always this cycle of things that happen that aren't that great, but when we widen it, it says, well, that had to happen for this to go. One of the ones that I find amazing is after I sold my moving business years ago. I took a business, basically I started that business about 20 years previously for $45. And over 20 years, I built it to a rather large company. And I sold it for over 400, 500,000, and I had no bills. And so I figured that, okay, I'm a business coach. It would be so great if I could take this knowledge and give it to people that are in business. And so I launched a huge seminar in person. I rented a space in a hotel and had like about 300 or 400 seats in there. I figured I would pack this place. And I had and of course I had the means to go on to radio, and I did a lot of advertising, sent it out to some people, and there was supposed to be several hundred people show up on this particular evening. You know how many people showed up? Anybody want to take a guess? Somebody showing 10. That's pretty close. 8. 8 people. Oh, by the way, 3 of those were family. So here I had this huge auditorium almost, and 5 people that I didn't know showed up. And I'm thinking, don't these people want to know this? Anyway, I went through the whole presentation and it was fine. And then I said to my wife, this is what happened. Because everything was pointing for me to be a business coach. And then she said, well, maybe you're not meant to be a coach. And if I look at it from a very small lens, that was a huge failure or a huge hit for me at the time. But when I widened the lens a little bit, I realized that I started asking myself another question. Well, if it's not a business coach, what else can I do? Up until that point, I was working with feng shui and other energy things because of my other business. So I figured, okay, well, maybe I'll be a feng shui consultant. And that got me on the road to what I do today. And I think to myself, if 400 people would have showed up for that, you would not see me today. I would be doing something totally different. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but I've heard from many people over the years that there's been some massive changes in their lives, and we never would have met. I would be in a totally different field. But because of that picture, I now look at it and the reflection comes back as, thank God nobody showed. Because I love what I do now. I don't know if I would have been the same before. So when we look at things like that, that's where we need to look at that reflection in a very key way. So what comes back? And we can do this actually for even some of the more difficult things in our life, is like if we lose a loved one. And believe me, it is not easy when you're looking at a situation where one of your loved one has passed away, wherever it is, grandma, grandpa, or it could be one of your kids, could be, and it doesn't matter. When you have to ask the question, what is the gift in this? Boy, that's a tough one. So that was really difficult for me when in the beginning. But when I started asking that, I started getting way different answers, high level answers, in the sense that it would give me peace knowing why that person left, why that person decided to do what they did, right? And so it is all about finding peace in whatever that you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. If you can find peace in it, you could walk through it. There's no fear. There's no hesitation. It's all about finding the answers you need along the way. So you need help along the way. And when we as humans are looking at the help that we need, most times when our ego kicks in, we look at, okay, at this point in my life, this is just one scenario I heard recently, so I'm just paraphrasing here. So if it doesn't apply to you, I'll give you another example. But by this point in my life, you could say to yourself, I should know this stuff. At this point in my life, I should be here, wherever here is, whether it's owning a home or whether it's having a concrete job or a concrete business or whatever you think you should be at based on the years you've been doing something and you're still in that. When you ask the question, what is the gift in where I am? You'll get a completely different answer. Okay, and that's what I want you to start asking when we go into a meditation here. We're going to be doing exactly that. Now, how many of you are familiar with whiteout? You know what whiteout is? It's the little bottle. Those of you that are not familiar with it, it's a little bottle that we used to use when we were typing. We made a mistake. We would take, and it has a little brush when you when you open it, and you paint over the areas that you want to change, and then you retype it because it dries very fast. Yeah, that's it. Whiteout. You got it. That's it, Tammy. And it's that whiteout. You go over it. And so even when you're in our days when we used to write essays, and we used to, there were some people that had amazing, really nice handwriting. My handwriting was pretty good, and we would have to write it out. And halfway through, we'd make a mistake. Oh, I don't want to do the whole thing over again. So we would use whiteout and then just write over it and just keep going. Okay. So what we're going to do is, and the way I want you to structure this is I want you to reflect back in your past in something that perhaps was uncomfortable for you, that somebody told you you couldn't do something, or you wouldn't amount to something, or that, you know, where did you think that you could do X, Y, Z? Something hurtful. Now, the only reason I'm not getting you to look for this, but you won't have to look far because it is something that is constantly bothering you to this date when you boil it down. You know, some of the aspects of why people can't take money could be because when money was entrusted to you, maybe you lost it by accident as a kid, and you were said that, why, how could you do such a thing? You were entrusted with this and now you're nothing. I had that happen years ago with one person. So if that applies to you regarding something connected to money, and you're constantly saying, yeah, what happened? To go back to that time and to look at that situation from where you think it is a negative. And I want you to widen that a little bit. And I want you to relabel it. In other words, what did you learn from that? What was to your benefit from that happening to you? What was to the advantage? What happened after that all of a sudden you became super, super trusting in the sense that there's no way anything would have happened like that again? Or you might have taken a different route. What happened? In other words, widen the lens a little bit. And as soon as you realize why the energies wanted you to go through that, and that's 9 times out of 10 is the case, his spirit want you to go through that experience. It might not have been good, but what did you learn from it is your next question. What is to my benefit? What was the gift? And as soon as you find out, I want you to take your little whiteout in your mind and then just put over or paint over the white with what was there, like I lost this money, or I was dumped, or I lost a job, I can't hold a job, I'll never amount to. And I want you to just white that out, and I want you to rewrite it of what it is now. You can't change history, but you can change the way that is reflecting back to you. When I look at that, I see that was a pinnacle point of my integrity. When I look back, that was the pinnacle point that I will never settle. When I look back at that, that is the pivotal point that there is no way that I'm going to let someone let me do all of the work for this. This is a two-way relationship, and so that was my day that I found that out. So in other words, when that reflection comes back to you in this two-point concept, you become stronger, and nothing changed in history. But what did change is the way that it now empowers you and moves you forward and makes you more loving, stronger, more of yourself. And the one thing I love about it is that you don't go looking for other people to find the answer. The answer has always been inside of you. That's what I love about this. It's totally a soul-driven concept, and only you can white this out. Okay? Now, you know the way I work. Those of you that have been in this class before, if you have, depending on how many experiences you have, you'll probably have many of those kinds of situations over your lifetime. Many of us have lost jobs or lost relationships or had a very challenging time where we couldn't make the rent or had whatever it is. There was a few of them. But I want you to take the biggest, baddest, ugliest one. So if you're in a playground where everyone's 4 foot, I'm going for the 6'5" guy in that analogy. The biggest one that you can think of or that comes to you, that resonates with you, that has probably held you back with more opportunities than anything else, or has given you fear for something. That's the one that we're going to do first. And I'll tell you why. Because the moment you could demonstrate to the other energies watching, and I want you to realize that it's like a playground where there's like 20 or 30 kids, they're all like 4 foot, then there's a 6'5" per energy, and then I'm going to take that guy out. Imagine what happens when you take the big guy out. Who's going to be left? Because you've demonstrated now you've gotten to the big one. And if you could take that person down, what ends up happening is many of the smaller issues relabel itself. You don't have to do every single one because they get it. They'll just relabel. So this big one is the biggest one that will take the highest work, yes. But also realize that you won't have to go through all the 20, 30, or 40 instances in your life to correct or relabel or white out to do it. I'd be surprised if you had 5 out of 30 that would still have the guts to step forward after that. Because energies, as you know, are intelligent. They're not stupid. They will only face you when they pretty well know they could win. You take down the biggest guy, they are not sure anymore. They won't. That energy would just, because you're in control, you're in charge. And that's what you demonstrate in that particular example. So take the largest one in there, and I want you to white it out, relabel it. And so from this day forward, when you look back at that particular instance, whatever it used to give you, it now reflects back a different energy, an energy of strength, or an energy of integrity, or an energy of whatever it is that you think makes you stronger, better, more loving, more peaceful, whatever it is. Anger is no longer tweaked. Depression isn't there. You see, all those things sort of just fall away after a while. What the masses do is they have many of these and nothing is addressed. Oh yeah, I remember I lost my job again and again. And then I went on a drinking binge and I crashed my car, and all these instances are just added up. And then, so yes, when you look at it from a perspective of looking back, and there's so many of them, it'll look like it's very, it's just too many. And then it's overwhelming. And then this is where they just sort of become despondent. So the reflection is from you to you, a younger you, a wiser you, a person that had the guts to start something, and you made a few mistakes, but those mistakes made you stronger. So widen that lens. Okay, so let's get into that. We're going to play the Canada Day. That was the tuning forks with the drums. And the reason why Spirit has chosen the drums on this one is because as you're relabeling some of these instances that used to cause you some grief, and now it's the drumming that's gonna hit that. It's gonna be more advantageous when it's part of your energy, because the drums are massively beneficial when it comes to shaking off energy that's just hanging on to you and there's no reason for it. So today we get rid of those energies that are just hanging on, because we want to go into this brand new year clean, lighter. And next week we're going to talk about how to move forward, how to reflect from the future. Today we're going to do it from the past. All right, so it's going to have some really fun things coming out of this. All right, I want you to take a nice deep breath and breathe in the color white. Pretend you're flying in a cloud and there's white around you. You can't see anything. And if you want to even remove the plane, you're just flying through this and you're breathing in that beautiful white, misty light. And then you go through your whole system and you breathe out that light. Now, some of you that are more advanced, if you could use your third eye, I want you to also breathe in from your third eye. Like open it up, breathe in as if it's a mouth, and also have white light coming out of your third eye. Okay? Some of you may feel that there's something stuck in your throat. Then you can have some things coming either out of your mouth or it could come straight out of your throat. Whatever works, just go with it. All right? But we're in this white light, and if you don't see the white light, it is okay. Just try and envision an outfit or a car or just something white that it's easily identifiable. Look at it. Sometimes what I'll look at, because I had one person a while back that no matter what they did, they couldn't see any color, including white. They could only see black. So what we did there is we lit a tea light, a candle. And I had them look right inside the middle of the candle where it's burning, you know, the brightest part of the candle, and look into it for at least 18 seconds. By that point, the retina will have stored all that light, and you close your eyes at that point, and of course, it's just like a flash. You're going to see the white light imposed on there, and then breathe that in, and then that got them started. After that, they were okay, if that helps. All right. Or you could look outside if you're close to a window, but bring in a level of white light so that you see it with your eyes closed. Okay. We want to be able to do it that way. Okay. Take a nice deep breath of white light, sit in a comfortable chair. If you prefer to be on a sofa, you don't have to see me. As long as you could hear the video, you could watch it after, but you could hear the video, and it will give you the drums, and you'll hear the tuning forks in the background. Okay, so we'll see you in about 15 minutes. All right. come out, the state you're in. How many of you are cold or chilly? Okay. When that happens, it's hard to quantify it, but a large part of your belief system has been changed. In other words, if you were really rock hard on something, and because of this meditation, you've changed something, the definition or the labeling or whatever, and it makes you feel it's something left that was heavy, you'll usually have a chill. So it's a good sign. Okay. It's one thing I wanted to read you. It was it's a passage that the Spirit wants me to tell you. It's about asking for help. This whole process, it's sometimes very difficult to do all of it yourself. You probably could, but there are some instances where you would need help. It says this: now that you have asked for our help, we're very glad to assist you. We only ask that you allow us to help you because, you see, at times you were blocked. We were blocked by you for doing anything. You believe that you couldn't or didn't deserve our help, and in making it necessary for your life changes that are threatening. Remember that we are here for you to ease your mind, body, and soul. If you need us, trust in our guidance. I don't know if that resonates to anybody, but so many times we run into this where we are resisting asking for help. Oh, I could do it all. But there are some things that you just need to allow into your life, despite the fact that you could do it yourself. Because we are a nation and a race of givers. Pure and simple. I think everybody can really relate to the fact that they can give. But we're sparse on a good receiving. In other words, if somebody wants to give you a gift, it's very difficult for some of us to accept it. But we are really good in giving them. Just know that when you give somebody help, when you give them something, they have this really good feeling when they've given it to you, right? And so don't rob someone of that if they want to give something to you. Just be gracious. We just talked about gratitude last week. And so just be grateful that they're there. It isn't the fact that you can't do it, but the fact is when you're accepting something, someone else is going through a time where they need to give and have it freely done. I've posted the link for today's meditation, just in case you want to see it again, or if it was some thing going on there. I have it in podcast form as well, and it's labeled "Tuning Forks with Drums and Tuning Forks and Drums." So that would be it. All right. If you need any kind of specific help, one-on-one, let me know. Be glad to help. But next week, we're going to be talking about the same format as today in terms of reflection, but how to do it in the future. We wanted to give you this because we wanted to end the year that you have no regrets, that everything is clean. I always have the belief, and Spirit has this as well, that we don't go on to new business before old business is taken care of. If you have some old things in the closet, old things that just get rid of them. Sometimes we wait until spring to do this, but if you got to go through your wardrobe and get rid of some things that are just hanging around, the lime green sofa that your aunt gave you before she passed away, if it's still in your basement, I might want to get rid of that. Again, we're coming into a new energy coming up within the next few days. And some of this old weight that is sort of clouding, if anybody can relate to that, just purge through it. Don't need this. Besides, the reason Aunt May might have given it to you because she didn't have any place for it, and you were the only one she could think of. So don't think that you're not, you're giving it away or you're purging it through because you don't love your aunt. Nothing to do with that. It's just keep the items moving. If it has no emotional effect on you, it just needs to keep going. And if some of you are looking at some of the sales on, see if you could find a Damn I'm Hot mirror out there, a full length mirror that you'll put by the doorway. And as you're going home or leaving the house, it's the last thing that you would see, and you could see, darn, I'm good looking. What a handsome creature. As you're leaving, it has tremendous reflective powers in preparing you for the world that you're going out to. Okay? Take care, everybody. Love you all. And we'll have this posted for some of the people that couldn't make it for class, and I thank you for that. So we're not going to see each other until next year. So have yourself a happy new year. Know that you've had to go through so many things over the last couple of years, and 2023 will have its own shares of challenges. However, there's going to be some great things happening to you in 23 globally. Everybody will feel this, but the ones that will ride through it the easiest are the ones that are going to be lighter. In other words, don't bring a whole bunch of emotional baggage with you. It'll just make the ride a little slower, and it'll do that way. But have yourself a good, happy new year, however way you celebrate it. And a toast to everybody. Okay, so I'll make sure I put a toast to everybody.
Happy New Year. And thank you so much, Tony.
All right, take care, guys. Love you all.
Thank you for 2022.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah. It's been good.
Okay, we'll see you next year, guys.